you may ask, what is really going on in their minds? Do you need a net? Well, keep listening for a biblical understanding of the psychology of the mind. Hey guys, welcome to another special segment of Mind, Body, and Soul with Annette. I am your host, Annette Harris. Thank you so much for joining us on this evening, for watching and or listening. Listen, we're about a little bit, 15 minutes behind on tonight's show. So we were supposed to start exactly at 5 o'clock. My apologies to you. Had a little technical difficulties on this evening, but we are here.
Why don't you do water over there?
I am so excited to have you guys with us tonight. You know what? Life happens, and I'm just going to laugh through it. Hey, what was that?
I said, we in here.
We are in here. So I am looking at a wonderful panel of gentlemen here with me on tonight. I actually have my co-host from my Thursday show here with me to help me out on this evening. Apostle Dion Hunt is in the house. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, Annette. Glad to be here amongst the brethren and the lady. And we're going to have a wonderful discussion tonight. Glad to be a part of it.
Well, thank you so much for actually coming on and joining me on this evening. I typically can ask Apostle, and he normally helps me out. He gives me a little fit sometimes, saying I don't need his help, but then he just shows up. So I do thank you for showing up, sir. I do appreciate
My
you.
pleasure.
All right. And so I'm going to just kind of go around and announce who we have on our panel tonight. I know you guys probably saw the promo already, and you're probably looking for a couple of people, but we're going to go with who we have here for right now. Others are going to come in as they can. So we have it's my upper left corner, actually right next to me. And I think it's a little different on Facebook, but that's okay. We're going to introduce to you a new individual to our panel. We've done these, I fit the description, special segments. We've done, this is like our third one. We did June, July, we skipped August, and we're back in September. But he is new to the panel, but not new to A&D conversation, if you will. Attorney Dow is in the house. TJ Dow.
Hello.
I don't want to make a mistake of what I did earlier, but how are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Ready for a lively conversation.
All right. And I'm ready as well. This is going to be a hot topic, and I want you guys, as I'm introducing, please make sure you are going to share the share button on this evening. That would really help us out a great deal. We have another attorney in the house. Jabari Jackson is with us. How are you feeling?
Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and I'm excited that you're here. Always great to hear from you, and it's always good to hear from all of you guys. I just want you to know that. And then I have a youth pastor in the house, Youth Pastor John Purnell. How are you feeling tonight?
Oh, I'm feeling well. Glad to be here.
Good. I'm so glad you're here. And all of these gentlemen are such busy men. Understand me when I say that they are busy, okay? But this is, again, the reason why I wanted to have this session, so that we can hear from those who are contributing to, positively to our communities, who they have these wonderful professions, they have families, they're family men, they're husbands. So I wanted to hear their perspective on what we're dealing with this I-fit description. Then we also have one of the best coaches I've ever known in the house, Coach Cornelius Crossley. I had to do it, man.
That's it. Up and coming.
Right. That's what I'm saying. And many agree with me. Coach Corn, how are you doing?
Hey, everybody, what's going on? Happy to be here. Happy to be a part of this distinguished panel. And always happy to see Apostle Dion and my beautiful family, Miss Annette. So thank you for having me.
All right. Wonderful. I'm so glad. I'm so glad you're here as well. You know, we always have when we get into these discussions, we always it's like we can never really scratch the surface. So we keep trying, we keep trying, we keep trying. And I do again appreciate all of you that are on here. I see you, Auntie Sand, and I do thank you for watching. She want to let you know. I'm sorry, Sister Sandra Richardson. Y'all know I call her Auntie Sand. So she wants you all to know that she's watching, okay? And we also have Byron Hill, Karen Peterson is on. And there are so many other names here that I can't see who it is on here. So thank you. Thank you for joining us. The numbers are more than what I announced who was on. Now, let me tell you, we do have this live feed, of course, going on my page, Annette Known as Annette, which is where I'm asking you to share from. Please go ahead and click that share button, click it if you would not mind. And then we also have the audio portion of this session that's live now on my YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and you type in Get Caught in Annette, A-N-E-T, you will hear the portion, the live portion of tonight's session. At the end of the session, what we will do is upload the video so that you can see it there as well on YouTube. So let's just jump in feet first, if you will. I know I have some questions. Apostle has questions. As I was preparing for this special segment, I actually came across this series on Hulu. I don't know why I was getting ready to say Netflix because it ain't even on Netflix. It's on Hulu and it's called Woke. Okay, that's the name of it. Some may have seen it. I don't know if any of my panel have seen it or not, or even know anything about this series. Okay, I see some heads shaking up and down. So okay, that's good. But man, I was taken away by that series. I really was. Now I've only watched maybe like 5 episodes, and I think it just started, right? Did it just start?
I think it's maybe, I'm sorry, I didn't cut you off. I think it's maybe 6 or 7 total episodes. So
Okay.
you probably have a couple more, but it's interesting.
Yeah, it is. And I'm sitting there, and I can't watch shows regularly. I'm sitting there taking notes as I'm watching the show, right? Okay. It was just that intriguing to me. But the whole, let's see, what grabbed me, of course, the one little quote, and I actually put it in my post, is that once you are woke, you cannot unsee. And as they were going through, I think it may have been the first episode, it was really they were telling you what they meant by that in their first episode. I don't know if anybody out in Facebook land has seen this series or not, but this is where I based off today's segment. I based it off of that show. So Faye Jemison, I see you, and Sue Emmel, thanks so much for watching. Now, okay, let me do this. Before I get to my questions that I actually have written down, Jabari, I saw you shaking your head up and down because you've seen that series. Can you give me just a brief synopsis of what you thought of that series?
Sure. And it's a comedy, so it's a comedy, but it's got definitely serious undertones. So it's nice. If you're looking for something like to watch or look at it, it's nice. Good to watch. But I guess at a synopsis, without trying to give everything away, the main character is a cartoon writer. He's got this script that he writes that's about to be syndicated. It takes place in San Francisco, and the cartoon is about to be syndicated. So cartoon writers don't make a lot of money, but this is about to be syndicated, so he's about to become rich, basically, because this is going to go all over the country. And it's a fairly innocent little cartoon. Nothing too serious about the cartoon itself. But while he was, I think, putting up flyers or something like that with the staple gun, how you put up flyers or pluggers for shows, parties, things like that, on a bulletin board outside, all of a sudden some cops accost him and grab him, pull him down to the ground because he fits the description of somebody who was committing a crime, but it wasn't him. But, once they threw him down and there's a crowd around and everything, you know, and then I think you know, that 2 or 3 minutes later, one of the cops like, no, it's not him, it's not him, it's somebody else, it's somebody else. So the cops just get up and they go about their way, and everybody, you know, goes on. But the whole trauma, as we've kind of discussed, you know, in previous shows here, we've kind of discussed how that whole trauma kind of sticks with you. And, you know, it's obviously something that he doesn't forget because, you know, one minute he's putting up pluggers with a stapler, the next minute he's on the ground, not understanding what's going on, got guns pointed at him, and, you know, fearing for his life. So that just kind of starts the ball rolling about, you know, him reevaluating his career, his life, what he's doing, his cartoon. You know, he basically ends up walking away from the syndication deal. And, you know, not to give everything away, but, you know, the series kind of culminates in him meeting that cop. They're supposed to have a beer and shake hands and kind of bury the hatchet, but, you know, it doesn't really go that way. So, you know, the cop isn't, you know, Mr. Nice Guy as they're trying to, as the police union's trying to portray him to be. So, you know, it's it ends the way it ends. You can tell there's going to be another season. I guess they're hoping that there'll be another season, but, you know, just the way it ends, it's kind of the, like I said, kind of the experience that we've all had, you know, here, or something that we've all had here, dealing with cops who aren't necessarily on the up and up. So,
Yeah.
but very nice. And like I said, it's mostly lighthearted. A lot of funny scenes. It's not too heavy, but, you know, it does get its point across.
Okay. All right. That was a good explanation of it. But yeah, it's so wild to me that, I mean, this stuff just happens over and over, like you mentioned about how we've been talking about it even in the I Fit the Description segments. And I guess that's what was really catching my attention. He was basically, he was on his way up, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And then this woke experience happens, quote unquote woke experience happens. So it starts affecting everything. It starts affecting his life. You know, like you said, the syndication deal and all of that. So then, you know, I wanted to kind of bring that aspect into what we are discussing on tonight. And, you know, we'll start off by asking you guys, what are you thinking? What is your definition really of being woke? Because even now he says it, and it is a comedy, because you have to watch it because it's like things are talking to him and stuff or whatever.
Oh, yeah. But
they're trying to make him aware, or the things are trying to make him become woke, if you will, as well. So anybody can answer this, your definition of being woke. And then after you answer that, I want to know how can you not unsee after you've had that experience of being woke?
I think when you say the whole terminology of being woke, that means at some time or another that you were asleep. And me being a black man in America, I ain't never been asleep. You know, I've gotten, regardless of what education I've gotten, I've always been reminded, and I've never forgotten that I'm a black man in America. They'll never let you forget that. And so, I mean, just within itself, some folks might lose themselves, or some folks might think that they are different, from the rest. And a lot of times that, if you're in sports, you're in entertainment and things of that nature, they treat you differently. But those are the folks that might need to be woke. But on an everyday basis, I'm reminded, regardless of what the situation is, throughout my life. So within itself, it's a subjective frame of mind that somebody within themselves, or somehow, some way, thinks that they are different than the rest, i.e. O.J. Simpson. When he said he ain't black, he's O.J. Simpson, But he probably was reminded now he's woke, I'm sure. So
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to laugh out loud. I didn't mean to laugh out loud. But you know he black now.
Yeah.
Now that's a whole lot. That does.
Yeah.
So you
I'll take it.
whoa.
I'll take it a step further. I think that, you know, there can even be levels. I'll speak for myself. So, you know, my parents, I always knew, you know, how to behave. My father and mother, they had to talk with their black son that, you know, now that I've had with all of my black boys, and, you know, I have a son that goes to college in the South. And so I've had that conversation with him that my mama had with me when I went to college in the South and all of that. And even through that, even knowing, I'll admit, I'll speak for myself. You do get to a point sometimes where you get a little bit comfortable that you're the, you know, that I know, I'm trying to say the best way to say it. I know that they still see me as black, but now they're starting to see me as not a normal black person. I'm one of the quote unquote good black people, you know? And so what happens is you start to think, and I'm just, you know, being honest, you start to know how to code switch. We talked about that before, right? You know, how you'll talk one way when I'm hanging out with Jay or, you know, Marcus or whatever, and then I'll talk a different way when I'm at the office. And, you know, I'll do this and you know, and whatever. It'll be fine. And then, you know that it's wrong and you know that's whatever, but it's like, cool. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna get paid. I've seen the first couple of episodes, and it's like the lady when she tells him, "Why didn't you just wait? You could have, you know, did what John Legend did, right? You would have waited, got your money, then you can get woke because you establish yourself and try to change, right? Which is so wrong because you can never wait. There'll never be a time where you made it enough, right? As we mentioned with OJ. But there can be those times in your life where it still slaps you, even though you know, it still slaps you like cold water, and it still, you know, reminds you, if you have forgotten, that it's a world that's never gonna let you live down or do enough to where your black skin won't automatically make you the bad person.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I ask a question across? So, and I like how you and both Attorney Dow brought it out, but is there a difference in how someone is awakened? You know, say, like, for instance, the guy in this series, it was something traumatic, something bad, something racial that happened to him. And because that bad thing happened, until that bad thing happened, which I'm sure he probably thought that that type of thing did not happen, but until it happened to him, he would have remained asleep or comatose, if you will. But is there a difference between that person waking up versus the person who is just conscious and aware anyway? Maybe they have a hunger for knowledge. Maybe they're just, you know, they're just alert and they see what they see and they're aware. Is there a psychological difference that has on someone when they're jarred out of their sleep and now they have to react to this new world that they see?
I think so, but go ahead, turn the bar.
Well, I was going to say, I guess it kind of depends on when and where you become woke. I mean, some people have those dramatic experiences like that, you know, and you can't avoid that. So that opens your eyes just like that. You know, I was thinking about myself. You know, the first time I was called the N-word was about 7 or 8 years old, growing up, you know, playing soccer out in the South suburb city that I grew up in. And that was the first time that I heard that, you know, but it's like once you hear that or once you know, experience that, you can never go back to sleep. So, I mean, it's, you know, I guess it kind of depends on your life experience or, you know, what you know, but basically what you go through or what happens to you and when it happens to you, you know. So, but yeah, once you experience something like that, it's that genie's out the box.
The reason why I asked that is because we know how the effect that trauma has an effect on our psyche.
Mm-hmm.
It has an effect on how we see things moving forward. So that hurt or that pain, for you it was 7 years old. For me, it was 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
First time I was called the N-word. And I didn't even know what was going on. You know, I moved from Chicago, Illinois to a small town in Elkhart, Indiana that was predominantly white. And I'm the only Black kid on the playground. And I get called these names and don't know why. And so, but that had an effect on me.
Right.
That, you know, transparent moment, I had to pray and ask God to help me with that as I got older, because I was angry. Now I was woke, but what was I woke to?
Right.
You know, because I was angry, you know. And so that's why I asked that question, is there a different psychological? Because I know it was kind of different for me.
Right.
Okay.
Marcus. I think you come from like generational awakeness. Sometimes you got, you know, I think, you know, John just talked about it, right? I mean, if your parents, and I'm a parent now, based on how awake I am or how jarred I was out of my awakeness, that's going to be how we introduce that to our children. So I think some people can be awakened with that quicker than others. To what we said earlier, you know, some of us are never asleep because it is in our face. But I think oftentimes, like, you don't want to use the word, you know, we were blessed. Some people are blessed not to be in those situations that where they are awakened with trauma or they're awakened with situations or that environment. And hopefully, you know, hey, they can stay there. But there's others that weren't as privy to that environment. So their awakeness it was in their face, and it was the survival of the fittest. So I think that we have to understand generationally, it's all about, sometimes your parents were awakening and you know, even going back to slavery, right? They're going to come in and go, we're not doing that. We're not doing, you know, so you kind of have ways that mentally, are you going to be exposed to that quicker? Because I think parents have a lot to do with that as well.
I like that answer.
Mm-hmm.
Cornelius? And you have
yeah, I'm muting myself. You have to excuse me. I'm in my backyard, so if you hear some lawn cutting, it's my neighbors. But
okay.
So I apologize. I think everybody's answer is valid. You know, I think I have to agree with Marcus about being generational. You know, for me, you know, my parents always really gave me the real because of where they kind of grew up. You know, they always told me that, you know, you come from sharecroppers. So I understood that from age 5, 6, 7, because my mother always made sure I understood what my history was. So it may not have been in my face. It may not have been something that was current, but they reminded me constantly, like, hey, this is the reality. Your skin is who you are. Like, you can't change that. You know, so like Marcus said, some of us have been blessed not to have experienced what some of our earlier or older generation of family members have experienced. You know, my mother always told me how she had to clean up for white women, and that was how she paid her way through school, you know, stuff like that. And then, you know, listening to my father, you know, him being, you know, as a retired Army veteran, you know, having to deal with the Martin Luther King riots, you know what I'm saying? So it was just, that was what they told me. But again, my experiences were different. I didn't understand that. But, you know, I don't think it makes, because I didn't have that, whatever authentic woke experience, I don't think it makes me less credible. You know what I mean? So I think for me, it's just trying to understand, okay, I've had some experiences. It may not have been as jarring as, you know, people who've been older, because eventually the world has changed. Things have made us a little bit more accepted, but there's still some experiences that I've had that probably would equate to what somebody in the 20th century would have experienced. So that's kind of my opinion on it.
Okay. That's a great, and I'm enjoying all of you. I really am, because you're bringing out some different points that I hadn't really thought about, and you're bringing it in very nicely. Matthias, another youth pastor we have here.
Hello, everyone. I would say we talked about, I would say the generational connection as far as just like with being woke. I would say another way that I look at it as well, and I agree with everyone on the panel, it's also a societal thing to me. One thing that really stuck out for me just recently was something that Lil Wayne said, and somebody asked him in an interview. They said, are you aware of? I can't remember how the verbiage of the question was, but they said, are you aware of Black Lives Matter, or are you connect? Do you feel connected to it? And this guy, like Wayne, didn't even show any type of. It was like he was just totally oblivious to the Black Lives Matter movement, and just. So I'm like, are you that disconnected because of your societal where you're at? Because you have so much money, because you have so much fame, because you have so much of this and that you're so disconnected. So, and the other artist, T.I., really, he got at him. He said, you need to make sure you're aware of this stuff. He held him accountable for that. And so my thing is, I think it's also a societal thing. If you're in a certain level of society, whatever you want to call it, where because money separates you from the rest of everybody else, a lot of times that could also make you woke, or in some situations even make you more, make you woke or even less woke, as you would say. So I think that's another way to look at it as well.
Okay. Great answers, guys. Listen, you guys saw on the promo that Michael was supposed to have been on. He was called to duty tonight. So he apologizes, but he sent in a question that he wanted to actually, ask you guys as well about this topic. So he asked, this will actually help us to segue into this question, what some of you said about generation. His question is, what's the difference between us now in this generation and others in the past? He said, for instance, like Sister Soldier, from my parents' generation, and how they were vilified, and now we're not, in terms of being woke or having, or having the responsibility of being woke. What's the difference? What do you guys think about? What do you guys think about that?
Actually, I would say that being woke is still being vilified. What I say is that now society has moved. I don't know if we want to say progressed or use political terminology to the left, or however you want to say it. So you have more of majority population that sees it and now can be a part of it. So it's been a little bit normalized. But when we look at positions of power, whether it's the current political system, president, Senate, local politics, governors, those that run our lives, that make our laws, that set up how we have to live in society, being woke is still a negative. It is a pejorative term, now, by segments of society. So what I would say is that because of technology and because of how society has progressed somewhat, we have a greater platform to allow us to say it. And we're not as alone in saying it as we were before. But for the top, for the elite, for those that are in charge, we're still bad and we're still wrong. And they still deny things like white privilege is still considered fake news. Things that, Black Lives Matters is still chosen to be misinterpreted on purpose. All of these things still happen, right? And, even to the point where society, where now you go and you start posting, like I know I'm I'm really vocal, you know, in social media, and so you go. And one of the things that I don't do is I don't block people. So there are some people who I grew up with, you know, that same suburb that Jabari grew up in, who, as they've grown up, we used to play baseball together and do all of this, and now they've kind of, you know, gone off. And you get to the point where you can start posting video clips of Martin Luther King Jr. speaking to things that are still valid now, and people get upset. Because, so I would say that, like I said, the more that we progress, the angrier and the more fearful that certain segments of society gets, that pushes back against it. So I would say that, you know, it's different. It is different, but it's still not considered a positive.
Okay, all right. Anyone else want to respond to that question?
I was going to say, I do think that, you know, yeah, more and more people are beginning to see what's going on, like, you know, we were saying. But to me, I think the only reason that is because of the invention of first the television and now the cell phone, or the video phone, or video on your cell phone. That's what I'm trying to say. So, you know, because Black folks been saying this stuff has been happening for 300 years, but of course, out of sight, out of mind. But, you know, you think about the fact that I believe, like, you know, Dr. King and those guys used to time those marches so that, you know, the film that would be aired on the, you know, the nightly news, so that people could see what was going on, you know, down in the South, and you know, the brutality, and then the reactions that they were getting and things like that. And then, you know, fast forward to now, you know, everything's on video, because, you know, now you see what's going on because we're capturing it on video. So it's like, we've been saying this stuff has been happening for years and years, but, you know, people chose not to see. So now, you know, they're seeing it, and now you can't deny it. But of course, like John was saying, there's still some deniers, and that's going to always be there, because it just makes them uncomfortable. But, you know, getting sprayed with water is pretty uncomfortable too. So, you know, but you know,
Having German Shepherds sicked on you.
Yeah, that's quite uncomfortable. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
That was deep. That was deep.
I think that when you talk about that, back when the stakes were much higher then, you're talking about your life. It's still like that today, but of course it was more accepted back then, and more deliberate and more intentional.
That's right.
So I think with that alone, it gets folks' attention. But I think what we as Black folks, we have, our levels of success has fragmented our togetherness. Back then, nobody had nothing, so we were all in the same pot. Now it's a different story, because some folks have had different levels of success and have different mentalities all the way around. But I do think that when we talk about woke and being woke, we're talking about Black folks being woke. And just as Jabari said, when you talk about these folks seeing all of these things on the television, and you hear things on the radio, you hear folks talking, they said the civil rights movement really took charge when folks saw what was happening, water hoses being sprayed on Black folks, dogs being sick. That's when they said the movement really, there was a force behind the movement when folks saw that on television, right? Mm-hmm. And then, as we know, it's similar to the Black Lives Matter piece here. Back then, white folks got involved. So then it became more of a credible movement. And I think that's what's happening now. Now, right or wrong, that's what I feel that when I see it. But I think, and as even back then and now, when we talk about woke and we talk about this show, I would say the most important people that need to be woke are the folks that have power, that are in power, that can assist us and whomever else that need help. That's what all of this movement and all this is about, is trying to speak to the folks that have the power, that have the influence. And then along the same sense is trying to get some of our people that may not be woke to come on board, that has some type of notoriety. And the question is, do they have an obligation to get on board? Does Michael Jordan have an obligation to give $100 million to the cause of racial injustice? Does LeBron James have an obligation to speak out about these things? And so that's what I'm more or less kind of surrounded. My train of thought is as it relates to woke and what segment is. Some folks can be woke, but even it's subjective. So just like in any other thing, like someone has a life experience that affects him, whether their mother or their loved one dies of cancer, then they want to get behind that cause and support that cause. It's just the same as here. They may not get behind it, but then when they get, some discriminated against, then they might want to get behind that cause. So they might just be woke, even though they acknowledge the fact that there are some issues with Black people in America.
All right, bringing out some more points. I see some light bulbs going on. Who wants to touch after that?
Can
Mark.
Oh, wait.
You can go ahead, Apostle.
Yeah, I was going to say we can take an offering real quick.
Y'all walking heavy. Is there a danger? In the church world, we got a saying, he's so heavenly minded that he's no earthly good. So you're so spiritual to where you can't even walk among us. You don't even walk, you hover.
Okay.
And and you're no good to us here. So is there a danger of being too woke to where I'm talking like Umar Johnson woke, where you see a conspiracy in everything, and some stuff don't even, maybe we ain't there yet, but I don't see it. You know what I mean? Is there a danger to that, to when the stuff that you're actually woke to don't even exist?
Woo.
That actually brings the James Baldwin quote that I'm sure we've said it on one of the other sessions, but where he says to be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be in a rage almost all the time.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, and that's what we see, the comedic take on that, right? And on the TV show, right? And it's that thing, right? Where I'm so woke now that I'm, I can't even function, right? You do see things that, are slights. You do see the undertones to it. You see those things. And so, yes, it can be a problem. So you have to learn how to function, because the other part about society nowadays is we're not a society that likes to wait anymore. We're used to instant searches. I need my full season to drop on Netflix, not just one episode. Man, I was so furious when Disney Plus would drop one episode of The Mandalorian a week. I was like, what is this? 1995? I need to binge the whole thing, and it's like, society is like, so we have to find a way to channel that into something that's productive. I try to get the young people to find a cause, something that they can do so that they can start to see some type of results or do some type of event where they can be heard. Because if you're not heard and you don't have an outlet for it that's productive, then you wonder why peaceful protests turn into angry mobs. And, besides obviously the other elements that try to come in and co-opt the message, we know that takes place too. But then you also get a segment of young people that are woke now, and that a world, because of social media and technology, won't allow them to ever unsee or put it behind. And they deal with the frustration, they deal with the economic disparities, they deal with the lack of opportunities, and they want everybody else to suffer like how they suffer. And so, you know what? I don't feel comfortable coming out of my house on 53rd Street. So why should you feel comfortable coming out of your house just because you live on the Magnificent Mile? You know, when we have these groups of young people that go out. So that's something where I feel like we have to. So in short, yes, being woke can be negative, but that's where those of us who are woke and who understand that there's a constructive path need to be able to be out front and try to help guide and shape, those to have a constructive outlet.
I like that response. Whoever next, you can get ready, unmute your mic. But that kind of matches along with what TJ was saying, about making these connections with these that like the Michael Jordans or those who have the money and stuff. And I think that was a very great point, because we have to look at it in that sense. It's not just, okay, I'm woke, okay, I'm done. We need to make some contact, see if we can make some changes with this. But I think also what you were saying, John, is there has to be a balance as well of being woke. Like we're just going to keep referring back to the series or the comedy that I talked about, Woke. Unfortunately, he wasn't finding the balance. He became woke and he just kind of went off, But, you get things talking to you and stuff, inanimate objects and everything like that. So, and then he just totally went off on that stage. And it's just like, okay, he didn't really know what to do, Just like, remember the roommate was like, oh, I see now. I know what happened. You became woke. That's what happened. And I know I'm jumping around that, but y'all got to look at the series. So, but it just tells me again, you have to have a balance, because I think he still could have had a balance in making his points or whatever. He could have even used, and I'm just talking, because he had the what do you call the Jabari?
Toasted butter.
Right. He had that campaign going, and maybe he could have, done something with that, in reference to him being woke now. But then I'm thinking, how much could he have done? Because he sold his rights, right?
Right. Yeah, he sold his rights to the.
Right.
Well, he started the. What was the other one? The Black Man for Rent or something like that.
Black People for Rent.
Black People for Rent. Yeah, he started something else. So he kind of took it in a different direction, and you have to see it to understand it. Yeah. So, but you're right. You're correct there. So
yeah.
But also, he could have just been like, I don't even say that he even had to even stick with it, but you have to be able to make a conscious choice. Like his wasn't like. And that's the problem. That goes back to Apostle. Like when you talk about, he didn't even make a choice. Like he just went off on the deep end. And some of us, we have to find a way to he could have consciously chosen to walk away from that strip and say, now that I know I can't do this anymore. But, and that's where then you can lay out a path versus kind of being lost, like how he was.
Right.
So I think a lot of that was kind of like artistic license for the, for the show. But,
right.
Yeah. So
yeah, definitely. Okay, who's next? Who's getting ready to jump in? Marcus?
I think the only thing you all said it, I don't want to continue to push, but that is a delicate balance, because if you become too over engulfed, it becomes paranoia. It creates something to where now you're not focused on the movement ahead. You're so focused on what's happening. And if this is a movement, then we have to, yes, address what the issue is and how we're being affected, but not let it continue to make you turn around. because obviously you can't walk forward turning around. So I just think that's kind of what I wanted to bring out as well, is that paranoia. Yeah, hey, to John's point, hey, I'm walking out on 53rd like this, and you know, you might walk into a wall, you know. So it's just, you know, you really are not paying attention well enough in front and being really laser focused on that, on what that goal is. So paranoia is the only thing I want to make sure as we address the need for the movement, let's not be too paranoid about it.
Love it. Cornelius, how would you address some of your ball players in this respect?
That's an excellent point. I've often thought about that. I've often thought about what would I need to say or how I need to represent myself to make sure, because, you know, working in education, you know, even though I'm a basketball coach, I'm also a teacher. So I teach first. You know, I know there's a lesson that has to be given to my athletes. I think for me, you know, I try to just be honest. You know, I try to be authentic about, hey, you know, the experiences that you're seeing, how does it make you feel? Because like we had discussed earlier, sometimes there's just a lot of the young athletes that I deal with now, you know, sometimes they can't even relate, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like, if it's not on a video game or it's not on Instagram, it's not something that they really are consciously aware of until it's right in their face, you know. But for me, I try to make sure that, you know, we understand, you know, like for instance, we played a couple teams where we were in a hostile environment, you know, they were of different persuasion. And, you know, we had to adjust. You know, and I just told them flat out, hey, you may hear some things that may be disrespectful. And, you know, at that point, you know, cooler heads have to prevail, because we're in a situation, we're in a part of the state of Illinois where we're not going to get these calls tonight. And it's simply going to be based on the fact that, you know, we're all black team, we're playing an all white team. And, you know, sure enough, you know, true to form, those things happen. So now, always, one of my mantras is adversity builds character. So the only way we're going to find out who we are and who we're going to be as a team, we got to deal with adversity, you know. And sometimes those adverse situations bring out the best in us, because our fathers and our ancestors have been oppressed. And a lot of that stuff, I believe, that's our DNA. You know, we've just been used to being oppressed. So sometimes we can rise above stuff better than others, because that's what we've been bred from. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's what I try to instill with them, is a consciousness of, hey, understand who you are, but don't let it define you. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing that I try to live by. Okay, I know this is my past. And kind of along what Marcus was saying, we got to move forward. We got to figure out how to rise above it. So dealing with athletes, it's always about a life lesson. It's always about, you know, hey, how can I make this something they'll remember? And then they pay it forward. You know, so that's kind of the thing I take with my athletes. And I'm very conscious of it. I'm very sensitive of it, because a lot of athletes are not ready for that real conversation, and I can't force them into that. So I have to be very careful, even how I breach the topic. I have to make sure I know where they are, because if they're not there, I don't want to put them in a situation where they're trying, like Marcus said, you'll be pushing them into paranoia, you know what I'm saying, as opposed to being awoke. So I hope that answers the question. I don't know if it did, but I hope it answered the question.
It did. That was good. That was good. Matthias, I want to ask you something. As I was doing my research, and I was coming across a few things that talked about, you know, those who are woke, like kind of being prejudiced against those who are not. You know what I mean? But we could do that without realizing that we are.
Yes.
How would you address something like that? Like, you know, you get somebody, you know, maybe they say, oh, I don't believe in that, and I don't think that stuff happens, just like Keith Jabari. You know, and then all of a sudden something happens, and then they're like, oh, okay. So how would you address, you know, a situation? I don't know, it could be some of your little drivers or something. I don't know.
I just recently endured a situation like that. I won't mention that person's name here, but it was on my timeline when Juneteenth came around. Everybody was so woke about Juneteenth. Now, me personally, I didn't know about it within the last 2 to 3 years. I'm sorry. I just came upon this. And so you had some people bashing the people I'm seeing this all on my timeline, like, you don't know about Juneteenth. And I'm like, I mean, it's like, come on, like some people are just coming into this and some people are just finding out this information. And so, yeah, you do have some of those radical woke people that get information and then now they want to bash the people that may not have that information. So I'm like, my thing is, let's just bring everybody into the fold. Okay, I may have just found out about this Juneteenth. I'm like, whoa, what is this? This is when we celebrate Independence Day? Wow, for the African American culture? Okay, now let me start to educate myself on this and then try to pull the next person on and make sure everybody's in the fold right now. So yeah, that's an excellent question, Annette. I feel like right now, you know, we need to use these opportunities to really just to provide more education so we can all be in the same level and be woke, but we don't have to bash the next person. We don't have to do all that.
Okay. Great answer. Thank you.
You know what the Bible says, knowledge puffs up. And sometimes people, you know, you got to be able to handle knowledge.
Right.
You know, I think maturity causes you to handle knowledge properly. And knowledge, you should not be using knowledge. The insecure person uses knowledge to beat somebody over the head. That's right. As opposed to informing them. And so you got some people that they just glad they know something. And they waterhead babies. They got this big old head now. You know what I mean? And they got all this knowledge and they don't know what to do with it. Instead of advancing your people, you beating your people over the head with it to show that you're a notch or a rung above. And so Joe Budden said something that just tripped me out, but it's so true. He said people with knowledge and influential people should not be ignorant. In other words, you got all this, you have a platform and you have a means to give out knowledge and to inform people, but then you're mishandling the knowledge that you have and you messing up more people than what you know. And so we got to be very careful as a people that when we, first of all, I got to be hungry for it. I got to be hungry for truth, not just information, but truth. And then when I have it, what do I do with it? I think people who are woke in the most sincere, positive way, they take on this assignment now. I gotta wake up as many other people as possible that are asleep. Wake up, And I think if that's you, then that's a positive way to look at it. And so now that we're woke, what do we do?
What do you do?
We gonna go Nat Turner on them or what? You know what I mean? What we gonna do?
Right.
So.
See a comment here that says stay humble and hungry. Is that what that said? Humble and hungry. Yep. I agree. Hey guys, I see you on Facebook Live. Ryan, Karen, Sean, does that say Yellows B? Okay. Thank you for watching. Mario and Carol, Kimberly says this is a great discussion from brilliant minds. #Kings. I agree. Hazel is on. Daniel, Judy, Jamone, Emma. And there were, again, other names I know I saw earlier, but I don't see it now. But thank you so much for watching. Please make sure you click that share button. Click the share button. Talking about being woke on tonight. Once you become woke, you can't unsee. So how do you deal with it? This is our I Fit the Description series. We normally do a special day. I'm normally on Wednesdays, but we did a special day for this so that we could accommodate everybody in their schedule. So I'm so excited to be here and are joining in this conversation. I see you, Pastor Philip Riddle. Thank you for watching. We appreciate you. Now we are going to actually, I do have the lines open. Apostle, I know that you had some questions as well that you wanted to ask the team or the panelists, should I say. Do you want to go ahead?
I like team. I called them the dream team a couple weeks ago. I like that.
Well, you can go for it with your questions.
I'll give you one of them, and then you decide on where we want to go after this.
Okay.
So there has been this conversation, and I dare say movement of individuals who have discouraged voting And it started with the last election cycle, and we're seeing it in this election cycle, saying stuff like neither candidates are for us. And it's gone so far as to say in this election cycle, let's withhold the Black vote until we have a Black agenda. And we've seen some of our woke celebrities say this. Is in all this has been said in all in the idea of being woke. What are your thoughts concerning this? Do you think that this causes dissension? Do you think that this idea has taken root in our generation of Black voters? Do you see a problem with this? What are your thoughts concerning this?
Well, one of the things, and I want to touch on, and Pastor Purnell, I believe, mentioned The Mandalorian. You know, they're coming out with season 2. So I'm looking forward to that. But
yeah, I think I'm gonna have to wait for them to release the whole thing.
Go with the whole thing so you can binge on it. So before I get to that question, Apostle Hunt had asked the question about, can you go too far with your advocacy, in a sense where you don't end up getting the end result. And see, to me, my mindset, whenever I'm going in and I'm advocating for my people, I'm always looking at what is the end result. What are we going to get out of this? And I think that I would say yes, but with a caveat. And that caveat comes in play is if everybody is working or have a united front or a concerted effort. Everybody must play their role. So if the folks that's going in the room to do the negotiating, and there's somebody out there that's acting a fool, as long as you're connected with them and talking to them, and they give you more power to go in to negotiate for the whole, then you're talking about a positive thing. And I'm sure Coach Cornelius can appreciate this. Just even when Michael Jordan was on the court and somebody fouled him hard, who was the one that was going to get him back? Somebody like a Charles Oakley was going to get the person back. Jordan is too valuable for the goal at hand, and that's to win a championship. So you don't want him out there fighting nobody. But Charles Oakley, the enforcer, can, because each person has to play their role. Just like with LeBron James, you don't want him out on the streets breaking nothing. Now, I don't condone any violence. I don't condone breaking anything, all right? But what I will say is that when everybody is playing their role and it's a concerted effort, then you can get some results back if you have that person. But you have to be mindful when you have situations like this, when somebody acts a certain way, it always opens the door for somebody else. Say, for instance, MLK was the worst enemy, right? But then when Malcolm X came, he may not have been the worst enemy, because what Malcolm X actions more or less said that MLK might not be that bad. So they brought MLK up there to the White House to take the pictures because, and I'm speaking back then, this Negro might not be as bad as this other one. So I think we need to roll with this one. So you have to be cognizant on this. And I would say, yes, it can, but if it's working in a concerted effort and everybody's on the same page, we can deliver a win back to our community. And just on the political piece, I think that, yes, it is. We as Black folks, though, we do have to hold the Democratic Party more responsible, because if they know they got our vote, then they don't necessarily have to cater to us.
Yep.
Now you call him Trump. Of course, Trump said something now, and trust me, I don't support Trump, but Trump said something that stuck out to me, and I said this to my grandma, and I'll let you know what my grandma said. But he said that when he was on the campaign, he said, "Black folks, what do you have to lose?
No, that's
Vote for me. What do
It's
you
what
have to
he
lose?" Right?
did say it. Yes, he did.
So my grandma followed it up with a response saying, "Your life." And I said, "Well, yeah, that's true, right?" So I only say that to say is that we have to we roll with the Democrats because they do I guess they more or less were programs and they speak to what it is that we feel is important, but in the same sense we do have to hold their feet to the fire and remind them that they cannot take us for granted.
I think the key thing there is that they speak to what we need. You know, they'll talk a good game. I think what a lot of people have realized, and I've said it for years, is that, you know, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are really two sides of the same coin. They all go about the same thing, but just a different way. And what I would never say to withhold your vote. Now, too many people have fought, bled, and died for that vote. I know I have gone in. I'll be transparent. I've gone in and I've been so displeased with the candidates that were offered that I just did a write-in ballot. One year, I voted for Pastor Adams as president and Howard White, who's my father, as vice president. Yes, I did. And I knew full well that in the state of Illinois, that ballot would be considered invalid. But I still, for president, but I still went and did my vote as a protest that you all are so off, that I'm voting, but I can't stand either one of you. I think my bigger thing, though, is what TJ said, and that is it's not just the vote. You go and you vote, but then you have to hold them accountable. And then you have to, it's a grassroots, and it's hard. It's hard to hold people accountable, and not just go and vote on one day and think that they're going to just fix all your problems. They got what they wanted. You're the one who still needs something.
But it's so hard. Let me tell you how hard it is. And you hit the nail right on the head. Both of y'all really did. But what makes it so difficult, and this is what I feel. I was watching, well, I'll get to that later. What makes it so hard is that I feel like people's lives are in danger, literally. When you feel like who you vote for and who you don't vote for can mean lives. Lives are at stake. And do we in the name of protest and trying to make a point, and this is just a question, I'm not saying, well, do we put lives in danger? Because there's a climate, there's this cloud, this dark cloud over this country now, where the audaciousness of racism and racial superiority is unapologetic. And when you have someone co-signing it and validating it and spewing hate speech, and then, people who are hearing it, who are influential, and it's putting wind in their chest, now they going out and doing stuff, and I just think that for certain individuals who are disconnected from our struggle, here's what I mean by that. Certain celebrities let somebody like me say that. Let somebody like Pastor John say that, or Pastor Matthew. But for someone who is disconnected from the struggle, you are a celebrity. Mm-hmm. And you ain't even seen low class or the middle class since the 90s. You don't even know what it means to live in the middle class. Your face is your literal ID. If you get pulled over, they know who you are. They look at your face. I get pulled over, they don't know who I am, so they can treat me any old kind of way. You know what I mean? So for someone who is disconnected to us, yeah, I know you still black, but your money. I know you still black, but you a celebrity. And for someone who is disconnected from our struggle to that degree, to tell us not to vote, I think that's irresponsible.
Yeah. Go ahead, Matthias.
I think in a way, you know, I guess I don't know how to really term it, but other than to say the powers that be, they just want to encourage that. I mean, they see it, especially if they seeing someone that is pretty dominant, has a pretty dominant presence among the African American culture, or just the urban culture in general, or just a culture in general, and they see they have this control or power over the words that they say. They can put out a narrative as far as like not to vote, or to try to have ways to suppress the vote in some type of way. And I think the powers that be, you know, they want it to be like that. And that's another way that they can kind of control, you know, who comes to the polls and or who votes for who and things like that. And then they don't have to necessarily term it as voter suppression. I mean, they could just have the celebrity or this famous athlete say not to vote. And you know, I'm not for that. I mean, I'm not for that. I definitely feel like, you know, your voice needs to be heard. You know, I just recently had a conversation like this with one of my clients. And, you know, of course, it only went to a certain level, but, you know, I left that conversation just kind of putting in some nuggets and just trying to say, hey, you know, you need to exercise that right. You know, I understand you may not be in favor of both candidates, but I mean, you need to exercise that right, you know, to do that, you know, as well. So, but yeah, these high profile celebrities, athletes, you know, people that are in this upper tier, when they have that power in their words just to say that, you know, there are people out there that will listen, and then the powers that be, once again, they just like, okay, cool, you know, let them say what they need to say. It's cool with me. I'm just gonna let it ride. You know, that's pretty much how it is.
Anyone else? Attorney Jackson, you don't want to say anything on that?
Sure. Well, I guess as far as getting to the question, obviously any type of not voting or voter suppression is, you know, that's just horrible. The big thing about it too is, you know, all politics is local. So, you know, if you, a lot of times people are saying, well, what difference does it make who I vote for president? It doesn't affect me. But, you know, if you get down to your city, you know, your councilman, your trustees in your village, you know, those are the things that affect you. And then you go out from there, you know, on up to, you know, state, county, or, you know, county, state, and then obviously national. So, you know, you never want to say, don't vote, or, you know, or that not voting is a way to get your agenda across. I mean, you know, to me, that's you're just being silent. I mean, you know, unless your agenda is being silent, then that's what you're doing, you know. But and you know, I was just kind of thinking as everyone was talking, you know, voter suppression now is kind of getting to be the last arrow in the quiver of those who want to keep, you know, the oppressed. You know, if we're not voting, then, you know, our voices aren't being heard, and, you know, those who are in power, you know, they're not necessarily the majority now, but they're still in power because a lot of people are being silenced. So, you know, you never want that to be your, you know, your weapon, I guess, you know. But it's, you know, it's basically holding your local officials accountable and kind of going out from there. I think, you know, Pastor John was saying that, you hold your local officials accountable, and then, you know, that trickles up, so to speak. So that's kind of how I look at it. You know, you never not voting. I'd have known you were voting for Pastor Adams, I probably would have done that too. We could have started something, yeah.
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
I did. Well, I probably did it. I put his name in a couple of times. But I didn't put it on this ballot. I just put it. Of course, he was living then. I'm sorry, he was living.
Right. Yes, exactly.
I put his name down. I'm like, because I wanted to continue to exercise my right to vote. You know, I don't want to just like, okay, no, I'm not going to do anything. But I'm telling you, if you are of age, go register. If you are not registered, do not listen to, I don't care who they are. They got money. They're not giving you any of that money. Go vote. Go vote. Exercise your right to vote. Too many of our ancestors, those that come before us, have gone through too much for us not to take advantage of it. Apostles, back at you.
And even when you look at all the things that they're trying to, all the obstacles that they're trying to put in our way to vote, it should let you know just how valuable our vote is. You know what I mean? And we, you know, I know we say stuff like, and I get it. You know, I gotta vote for the lesser of two evils. I get it. But it's still your voice, and it does matter. And don't just vote for the presidential election. Vote every 2 years. Do what you got to do in your city and your town, and that's your vote. That's your voice. That's your voice. Marcus, come on, help us out.
Man, I'm enjoying one thing, and I'm probably the youngest person on this panel at 35 years old. But I think it is important to continue to say what you all are saying, because I know from my generation, we don't always think the vote is really to the local level. A lot of times we don't support the local level. So I think it is very important to continue to advocate that message at all times. And so, I mean, I definitely want to say that first. I definitely have gotten better at being more aware and you know, understanding what my local looks like, especially now being a homeowner and understanding my kids in school. And you know, Attorney Jabari has always been there to kind of be there. So I just want to, I agree with everyone, so I don't have to continue that. But I just want to say for anybody that's like you know, Annette just mentioned, go out, vote, not just at the top. Come on down. We you know, get involved and be educated and continue to be curious. Curiosity is always good to be able to be effective. So I just want to be.
All right.
To be effective. I like that last statement. Okay, I like that. I'm sorry, go Apostle.
Go ahead, Pastor.
I just wanted to say, just real quick, just to give people an example about how politics are local. What's going on right now with the passing of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So this is a perfect example of a federal thing, a national thing that is affected by the local. When Obama was president, we had an opening in the Supreme Court. However, because Congress was controlled by the Republicans, they were able to block the Democrats from being able to get a vote and have a Supreme Court justice put in place. But now, because not just because of the president, but because of the local elections for Congress, the Republicans have both the Congress and the White House. So while we may think that it's unfair, and it's uneven, and it's this and that and the other, there's literally nothing legally that the Democrats in Congress can do. And there's also mistakes that Democrats made, you know, the nuclear option and all that type of stuff. But the whole point is that who you elected locally for your state impacts the national narrative.
And there's so many levels to that. And I can get into the whole hypocrisy about them blocking that vote now. You know, that's a whole nother show. But another thing that we have to be aware of is if they choose that Supreme Court justice, if they choose it, then if somebody wants to challenge the validity of an upcoming election and it goes to the Supreme Court, then they have the Supreme Court on their side. That's right. There's a lot of levels to this, and they're doing things now that they swore that they would never do 4 years ago, you know, and they're doing it now. And so, but it's all right. You have to vote. You have to vote. Right. And so, yeah, You know, they know how important your vote is. That's why they don't want you to do it. That's what I don't want you to do.
If they know how important it is, then you should know how important it is.
Absolutely. I got another question. So, how or what do you feel about non-blacks sharing in the burden of racial injustice and inequality? Can they be woke as well? Or are they so enmeshed into the system and being favored by the system that they can't see the depth of our struggle?
That's loaded.
I do believe that's really the weight that we need. I mean, us and our people. I mean, we can fight and we can do what we need to do and advocate for what we need to advocate for. But if we can get some of our other races and brothers and sisters and our other races involved, and I know some of them personally that are, you know, very much in the mix as far as just like making sure that there is racial equality, and they're for the Black Lives Matter movement. They're for the things that are going to bring this country together. For me personally, I think those are the people that we need on our team. One thing that's shocking me in this climate that we're living in with racial inequality is how other countries, like you know, when the George Floyd incident happened, you had like Berlin, and you had people in all other type of countries coming together and having marches and things like that. I've never seen that before in history, as far as like with civil rights and things like that, and equality. So I think that's the edge that we need, having other brothers and sisters of other nationalities on our team, so we can come over this hump, because those are the ones that we need to be in those places, in those positions, to talk to people that we may not even come into contact with, you know, as well, you know, that may not understand the plight of what we go through or what we've been through for these past, you know, 300 or 400 years, you know, as well. So I think that's the edge we need.
Okay.
Real quick, I have to be transparent. I think I totally agree with Matthias. We need it. The civil rights movement, we talked about earlier how it turned when people saw the hoses and the dogs, but they also saw the handful of white people that supported us getting the hoses and the dogs as well. And so I do agree with all of that. What I have to be honest though, I do struggle sometimes. I've gone to marches. I even helped organize one, and I gotta admit, it's weird, you know, when you see so many non-African Americans that are out there, right? And you know, so I know I personally have things that I'm like, okay, this is good. Okay, you know, like weird emotions. You know what I'm saying? Like it's weird for me. And then when you see some of the violence and things, there was destruction in Chicago, and then the video came out, and it was the white guy with the hoodie and the black and the backpack on. My son, I mentioned, he's in the South. He was in Nashville. They set the courthouse on fire. When the video came out, it was a white guy, you know, with the, you know, neo-Nazi tats and all of that, you know, and it was like, oh, you know, and I mentioned earlier about like co-opting the message sometimes. So I think that it is necessary, because the more everybody sees it and is on board, then it becomes real for everybody. But I do think, and one of the things that I've challenged those that are in my life is I appreciate the marches and I appreciate the almost anonymous, because of masses, show of support. But what I would really love is the support when you're at the dinner table at Christmas and it's your father,
come on with it,
father-in-law, or your uncle, you know, who's, you know, a CEO at such and such company, or who's a mayor or a governor or whatever, and you say it to them. You know, I want that support when I'm not around. You know, I challenged the group. I said, I want you to stand up and fight for my children like they're your children when my children aren't around. So when we start to see that, when we start to see, I've seen different ones and I've seen their posts change, like on Facebook. It's not anonymous. They're actually and I'm like, I see you. Yes, that's what we need. And so the more I see it when I'm not around, and not just the I'm here for you, brother, but then, you can walk away later and not have to deal with the ramifications.
Yeah.
Or deal with the struggle. That's what I want to see.
Can you defend me when I'm not in the room?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right. It's easy when I'm here and there's 10,000 people walking, right? Mm-hmm. And we're all holding up posters and folks are upset. That's easy. But things didn't calm down. People have moved on. I mean, look at how long the outrage was for George Floyd and Jacob Blake. I mean, yeah, the league, all sports paused, which was amazing, but we're already back at it. I'm back amazed at what AD did last night. You know what I'm saying? What are you gonna do when I'm not there? That's my thing. If you are in for it when I'm not around, that's what I need. More so than the marches and stuff is good, but
when it's not fashionable.
Exactly. When it's difficult. When it's hard.
Yeah.
I have a question. So have any of you, and I don't know why I want to pick on Cornelius, but have any of you ever had this conversation with your non-Black friends or associates or whatever you call them? Maybe asking them or, saying, I need you, not just in the big crowd, like, Brother John just said. I need to know that this is I need to know this is real. Have you ever had this conversation?
I've actually, and it's funny, it must have been the spirit that told you to get me, but I've actually had a conversation recently, I want to say maybe a couple weeks after our first session, and it was actually with a former teacher. And this was a difficult conversation because, you admire your teachers. They shape you, they mold you. And even in my, I guess, late 30s, I still have huge respect for my teachers, more so now because I'm in the profession, but still because I still see them as that beacon, that high regard. So, we had a pretty, and it wasn't a bad conversation. It was just, kind of an exchanging of, okay, philosophies. This is how I feel. And, there was, I think it was a political satire post I had put on my wall. I thought it was funny. I thought it was funny. And the reaction that I got, I thought it was pretty funny as well. And she kind of challenged me on the, if you will, the morals of it. And, I really kind of had to have an honest conversation about my truth versus your truth. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's the thing that it was difficult. And, and we had a pleasant ending to the conversation, but it was definitely something where I had to challenge my teacher, the woman who inspired me, one of my inspirations to become a teacher, the woman who I hold in dear regard. Wow. But now it's like, this is young adolescent Corn versus adult Corn. This is grown man Corn. This is I have 3 black boys Corn, and now you can't tell me that it's raining when I know it's really. And you all know the cliche. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So now I'm kind of this mindset where I felt like I needed to explain to my teacher that, hey, this is my truth. So while you may be, kind of, I think John might have alluded to this, sometimes our Caucasian brothers and sisters, they can jump back into their skin. They can be radical. They can be with the cause and doing everything they can do. But then when I come home, you know what I'm saying, and when you go home, and when I get up the next day and drive my car, now we're in a whole different frame of mind. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just had a conversation with my wife. I literally told my wife, I said, I don't want my children to be dressed in all black. She said, what do you mean? I said, I want my children to be dressed in all black. And the reason for that is that I never want them to have an appearance of looking like they could be getting into something because of the all black, because that's just what it is, and that's just me. Now, I could be wrong, right, indifferent, or whatever, but I said that to say, that conversation I had with my my teacher, it really forced me to really have to stand up for like, hey, this is who I am now. Back in the 90s, I listened, I paid attention, I did what I was supposed to do. And I never respectfully challenged, but now, 37 years old, hey, nah, I need you to understand where I'm coming from. And I need you to hear me very clearly and succinctly so we can make sure that when we have these tough conversations about race, understand that my truth and your truth will never, ever, ever be the same. Will never, ever be the same. And that was a tough conversation, but I think she appreciated me standing up for my belief and what I was trying to represent to her.
Great response. I guess it must have been meant for me to ask you that question. I mean, because it's something, and sometimes we may have those questions in our mind to ask them, but we may not be comfortable enough. But then sometimes you get those situations like he had, where it's like, okay, head on, you have to address it. So I just wanted to know what your thoughts were. Anybody else could have hopped in on that if they had that experience or not.
I mean, I have. I usually don't have no problem. Like, I might not necessarily offer it to them, but if they ask the question, I'm going to answer it, and I'll be blunt as possible in the conversation. Yeah. I mean,
I'm a witness.
Yes. I will. And it's funny, they said all politics are local. That was one of my first political books I wrote by Tip O'Neill. That kind of got me. I was already involved, wanted to go into politics, but that right there, that was one of my first books. Is all and all politics are local. And so the one piece, and I know Pastor Purnell mentioned about Trump's appointment. That hopefully, because see, my thing is Democrats sing Kumbaya and Republicans go for the throat. Okay,
Right.
And so, I mean, that's just across the board in Congress, the Senate. That's how it is. So I hope they do not allow Trump to replace Ginsburg before this election, and then we only can just hope that he loses the election. But because there are some things they can do in their toolbox. It's called a filibuster, right?
But remember, the Democrats broke the filibuster, though. They did once they did that nuclear option.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is you can filibuster, but I want to say that when the you can't do like what was that old black and white movie? So and so goes to Washington.
Oh yeah, he read like the dictionary, something like that.
You can't do that anymore. Like you literally can't do that because I'm gonna have to look it up. Y'all forgive me. I don't know. I'll defer to the lawyers though. But my understanding,
go ahead,
was that they did that when they said it when they had the simple majority and not the super majority. So they didn't have the 60.
They needed the 60. Yeah,
right. They triggered what the media was calling nuclear option, where they would only need the 51. But one of the side effects of that was not being able, basically stripping the filibuster power from the minority. And I remember at the time, I was like, they should think twice before doing it because the Republicans were like, oh, you better not. But they really wanted them to, because eventually when you get in power, that means you got total power. And the other side can't stop you. But that's my understanding, but I might be wrong.
You may be right. But I think that in any event, they should exhaust any avenues that they possibly could have in trying to do that. I mean, when you look at Black folks gained a lot through the court system because we couldn't get it in the local government, right? And so it's so important. And if folks can say this, like when Thurgood Marshall passed and we got Clarence Thomas, that was a setback, that was a setback with his beliefs and how he views things. And so that's who we have as representation now, unfortunately. And so I just think it'd just be detrimental if they're able to do this in this short period of time, be able to replace Ginsburg, and we stuck with that appointment.
Something that they said they would never do. something that they said, hold my feet to the fire. If it comes around in the next 4 years, you can play the tape back. We're not going to do X, Y, Z. Now look at what they're doing.
No.
Y, Z.
And to me, it's the principle. You know, if you're gonna hold to what you said, then you need to hold to it.
But that's that throat grab versus kumbaya.
Right.
I would agree.
I think, they'll have to be Democrats. They'll have to be creative. I don't know if there's a way, like if none of them show up, like if there's something where there has to be a certain number for a session, like they're gonna have to do something like or like a sit-in, like we just all gonna sit on the floor and y'all, lock our arms and not even let the Republicans go in the door. I mean, it's gonna have to be like, something radical because everything that I've read from the normal, Congress machinations, there's nothing they can do except, public pressure and then thinking outside the box.
Right. Hey, Pastor Philip made a couple of comments. He said, I don't think they'll ever be able to identify with our struggles. Uh-oh, I just lost it. Oh, here we go. Okay. But we can appreciate their support. We were asking a question about the non-Blacks.
You know what? And that's a great point. And I was thinking the same thing. I think it's next to impossible for them to speak to our reality. But they can what's the word I'm looking for? They can be compassionate, and show compassion, and they can try to understand their role in us moving forward. I was at a couple of rallies. They can sympathize with us. I was at a couple of rallies where it was a lot of non-Blacks. One of them was predominantly white. This Generation Z is on point. My mind goes back to when we're trying to do all this stuff concerning gun reform, but it wasn't until the Generation Z white children started coming to Congress and voicing, that we started seeing certain things happen. And this Generation Z is something else. Because we're seeing this kind of rainbow effect in these marches, I think that's what's making a difference. But one of the things that was so eye-opening to me is that when I went to one of these marches, I heard a group of white young adults say to the Black young adults, "Put us up front." And they said, "Put us up front because the police will be less likely to exact violence against us." And I was just like, whoa. And it's true.
Yeah.
But it just jarred me. But then
the reality of it jarred you.
The reality of it, and them knowing it, even though it's something that I knew already on the inside, to hear it, it was just like, wow. And this is why we're marching. And but I noticed though, within the group of those that were up front, there were some Caucasian young people who I questioned their motive. Right. Because when we finally met the officers, let me tell you what they did. They honed in on the Black officers. And they started disrespecting the Black officers. One was just about spitting in a Black officer's face. Yeah, and it was bad. And my thing was, okay, you get this whole wall of white officers. Why you go over to him? And you ought to be ashamed of yourself, blah, 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 and just going in on him. And it was just really unfortunate because I saw, okay, some of you still don't understand. This is fashionable to you. This is something that is in style to you. Talk to me in 5 years, 10 years, and let me know if you got the same, feelings about this. And so that's why I question, sometimes you have to know, I think TJ Dow spoke to this, you have to know your place in the movement. There's certain people You talk to the people in the boardroom. That's who you talk to for us. There are certain people, talk to your family members. We don't need you on the front line. But then there's certain people, all we need is your money. All we need is for you to finance this movement. And you're no less a part of this movement because you're not walking the street. No, you're financing it, you know? And so I think knowing your place within the movement is paramount.
Good point. Still a part of being woke. Let's see here. I see some individuals that I did not call. Crystal and let's see, Jonathan, Janetta, Emma is on. Hey, Monique. She says, hey, family. It's my niece. I also see you, Marcus. Marcus Hill is on. Estella, Ryan, Milton, Chloe, Evangelist Moore, Dion Carr, Pastor McCray, John Smalley. I do see you guys here on the watch party as well. So thanks so much for joining us. If you're just not joining us, we'll be wrapping up soon. We're talking tonight about, this is another session for I Fit the Description. And it's a real talk, real conversation. And the discussion tonight, once you become woke, you can't unsee. So how do you deal with it? In the past, maybe 15, 20 minutes, we've been discussing how do you deal with this? And you know, I'll just say this, and you guys can kind of, you know, get your wrapping up thoughts that you want to share with us on tonight. But I'll say this. I think that the main reason why I felt impressed to even do this particular segment is because every time I see something in the news happening against my Black brothers, I think of you. I think of you, and I'm, you know, it tears at me, and it just kind of, you know, really nags me. It really bothers me because who the police are out there harassing and saying you fit the description, that could be any of you. It could be. And it hurts my heart. It really does. But I say this and have this panel because I want, again, first and foremost, to hear your thoughts and how do you deal with it? Because sometimes you could be dealing with it internally and not necessarily, you know, saying how it's been affecting you. You know, I don't know how you feel, you know, when you leave the house in the morning and, you know, are you thinking, I just want to come back to my home, to my family, to my children, you know, what have you. So that's the whole, just to kind of give you a little wrap up of how this particular special segment started. But I do appreciate, you know, you guys, when you come in and you're sharing your thoughts and you're being transparent, because it's real out here. It's real, and we know it is. But I think that there's something that can be, you know, done, whether we're equipping ourselves or whatever, what have you. You know, we come up with different things. So that's another reason that we come with this panel. Michelle White, I do see you. Thanks for watching. I think your little sister's on there, John. So appreciate all of you for joining us on tonight. Apostle, did you have any other questions that you wanted to ask as we are wrapping up tonight?
I did not.
You did not? You asked all your questions? You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Follow up and everything.
What was that?
Follow up questions and everything.
Follow up and everything. Okay, you were ready for me tonight. But yeah, this whole concept of being woke. What do you do? Are you too far to the left woke where you're destroying everything? Or do you have that balance of being woke? I see you, Phyllis Goodlow. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. I'm going to actually kind of go around. We have a little time to go around to each of you to give me some wrap up statements or what you want to. Maybe you wanted to say something earlier, you didn't get a chance to, you want to add before we actually end on tonight. I'm going to pick folks. How about that? You, Pastor Matthias, you wanna start us off?
I think right now, if anything that we can gain, and this is not necessarily about just being woke, but I just think we as a people, this is our time to really kind of change the dynamic right now. This is our time to shine. Right now, there are things and different entities that are trying to separate us and divide us, as we talked about earlier in the conversation. If we could ever get on the same page, and we talked about this, my good brother TJ talked about this, just kind of getting together right now, just kind of forming one movement, kind of going in one direction. This is the time to do it right now. This is the time to do it right now. I mean, instead of just being divided and, we really don't have a clear leader right now. It's like everybody, we just kind of all over the place. This is our time to shine. We really try to really move with one voice and try to change this narrative and try to change this world, essentially, if that's the case. But I mean, it's only going to happen unless we all unite. So that's kind of my final thoughts right in there as well. Just kind of sum up everything because, and John, I mentioned that your point, you mentioned a great point just about these conversations, these tough conversations. We talked about that on the first show. And I think that's probably one of the other things that we really need as well. Having individuals need to have those tough conversations with their great grandparents, the ones that grew up in that heavy tension of racism, and their great grandchildren, and they need to have those conversations. Say, hey, no, you know what? We can't think like that. We stopping this right here. This generational curse of racism that's on our family. I'm gonna have to stand up to my grandparents and my great grandparents and tell them, no, that's not right, and how this mindset has been on our family has to change. So that's kind of my 2 cents. That's all I have to say. This is a great panel. It's a great discussion. I always enjoy coming on. So, and you all, it's amazing. I love having you, being able to exchange dialogue with everybody here.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Attorney Jackson.
Yeah, just as far as being woke and everything, it's kind of like what Matthias said. It's what's the word? It's I don't know, stressful, but it's a crazy time right now, and we got a lot of things going on, and I guess sometimes you do get concerned about what's happening, and the potential for violence. I think like Pastor Dion was saying, this election, and we've seen it's almost as if you don't vote, some people could die, or something to that effect. It's like getting there. It's like it's getting serious, but voting is kind of the last peaceful, I don't want to say the last, but it's one of our biggest weapons, peaceful measures that we have to enact change without burning everything down, or without, resorting to all out violence. And, nobody wants that, but it's, nobody wants to be pushed in the corner either. So, I just, I always go back to what President Obama said during that State of the Union address: don't boo, vote. And, and it's just that, that's just what we have to do. I get concerned about voter suppression and lack of voting and things like that, because, that's what they're trying to do to us. And, it's, that's just my thing. If, like you say, if you see what's going on out there, you need to have your voice heard. You need to make sure your voice heard from the local levels all the way up to, to the federal level. So again, don't boo, vote. Right.
Love it. Yep, that was a great quote. Great quote. Thanks for mentioning that. Come on, Marcus.
Number one, thank you for having me on this evening. It's just amazing to be able to participate in such a great conversation. Final thoughts. For me, I'm reminded of that fable, the donkey and the whale, and it really kind of comes to that simple, fable that I was taught at a young age of, that donkey was in the well and was able to use the dirt that was put on them as a source to build them up and to be successful. So, I'm thinking of this now. We have forces that are coming at us as the Black community. And I think if we are woke the proper way and we're not over radical, we can use that force, we can reverse it, pivoted back to build us up to where we need to be. So I just want to kind of, that's my final thoughts on it. I appreciate this conversation because I think we took it to an extent in different perspectives to allow us to better understand how to remain woke. I love how TJ said, I was never asleep. You know, and those are things that we always have to understand, and everybody's story was so matter of fact and point on. So you know, let's use that the force and use that fable of the donkey to really build up the dirt that is put on us, and we can rise above.
Ooh, I love that. Yes, I was shaking it off, like build up. Yeah, that's right. That's what we need to do. Attorney TJ, since he just mentioned you, saying you started us off saying you been woke. Come on.
Oh yeah, I'm reminded of that every time I wake up in the morning and go out and face society. So, but I will say, I mean, brother Matthias Adams and the other brother Marcus Adams and everybody, they kind of summed up everything very well. I think now you have to seize the moment. The time is now, because we don't know how long this moment's going to last. Like, I am in awe when I wait. Throughout all of this, I was so surprised that all this was going on. Like, when I literally, it's like I saw a unicorn when I saw some white folks wearing like the Black Lives Matter, like the mask and shirts. And I'm like, wow, you know, and I think, and I didn't touch on this, but I think collectively, the more the merrier, you know? And when I see them, my thoughts are that they are coming from a good place, right? That their hearts are in the right place. That's my assumption when I see folks wearing the t-shirts, Black Lives Matter, because whenever you have a movement, the goal is to galvanize folks, to get people from different walks of life to understand your plight and how you live on a day-to-day basis. So I think it's nothing but a plus and a positive. The more the merrier with that. So I just want to leave it at that and appreciate it. Thank you. And let the panel know I enjoyed all of your dialogue as well. And the host and hostess, great.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate your input on tonight. Let's see. Come on, Cornelius. Are you ready? Coach Corn.
Yes. Certainly want to just appreciate this wonderful panel, distinguished gentlemen, and of course the queen of the hour. I certainly appreciate this opportunity to just, you know, like everyone else said, discuss and to be able to just exchange. You know, I don't know if it was said here, but I think every time you come into contact with somebody, there should be some type of exchange. And I felt like I got multiple exchanges and probably more than enough to in this whole
You're still good.
okay, yeah. I feel like I got enough overabundance of information. The one thing that comes to mind for me, I'm going to take it to a little bit of a church reference. I think it was in John 5. You know, as we are becoming woke or awakened, what is the most? They say all successful people do one or two things every time they awake. What's the one thing that every successful person does? Who knows? They make their bed. They make their bed. They say all successful people make their bed every day. So what I'm going to say is, after we've awakened and we make our bed, let's rise up and walk. All right? Take that bed and rise up and walk. That's my closing statement.
I love that. That almost sounds like Jane Adams Crosby there. I love it. All right, we're going to end with, we're going to call you assistant pastor. Oh, I just promoted you. Youth Pastor John Fennell.
Hey.
I will. Can I get a point of personal privilege real quick? I believe, Pastor, you are correct. I think the filibuster might be on life support. They even written it off, but it is on life support. So I do give you, you were right on point with that support.
Cool.
And I wish I was wrong. Because we sure can use it right now. Oh man, I just once again, this was a great discussion. Just happy to be included with these fine young men. I was thinking about what Attorney TJ was saying about, now's the time. We don't know how long this movement is going to last. And, in my mind, Apostle Dion said, it's going to, a vote could potentially cost someone's life. And I'm thinking about this movement. I think about how the world really hasn't seen anything like this since the 60s. And, my prayer and concern is, will enough people wake up? Will enough people be woke so that we don't have to have the MLK assassination moment before it finally takes hold? Like, we've had George Floyd, and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, and say their names, right? We've had them all, but unfortunately, I feel like there's still a point in society, a point that society hasn't reached yet. There's still enough people that can still choose to ignore it to prevent that final change for it to take place from it sticking and us really saying, okay, we built a floor and now we're moving to another level. And my fear is that it's going to be a young man, like somebody on this panel, right? Dropping their kids off at school or at a baseball game or a track meet, or on their way to practice law, or on their way to do one of these things that has to be the one where and it's on video and everybody finally gets it. It was that, that pastor, that husband, the one where they couldn't say, well, he had even though he was sitting in his own house when she shot him, he had a little bit of weed in his system. Like, there is still, unfortunately, a climate where it will be, I hope I don't want to be a prophet. I don't want this to take place. But so many times in society, it takes that one, right? That everybody's like, oh, wow, not her or not him, not, how could that cop not know who Michelle Obama was, right? I mean, it has to be, you know what I'm saying? Like it, and I pray that we wake up before something like that has to happen, because should it happen, you think the dissension and the outcry and the violence and the things were that way before. I don't think this country will have seen anything that level since like the Watts riots. And it'll go all over this country and possibly all over the world. So my prayer is that God keeps that back and he allots enough time for this country to see their shortcomings, see their faults, and really commit to those changes. Because if they don't, and they allow to continue to live this lie and allow it to perpetuate, then that one will be the one that will take this and really turn it into the grease fire that won't be ignited until laws are passed and things are finally changed in the system. So that's my prayer. My prayer is that enough people watch this program, that enough people have those tough conversations in the personal settings, that enough politicians, that we go out and we vote, and those elected take it seriously and implement these changes so that it doesn't take that life. So, yeah. It would be the first time in our country's history
Yeah, you're right. Thank you for that summary. Apostle, did you want to say anything else before we got out of here?
Great show, everybody. Pastor John, that was real.
It was.
That was real. And just to echo what you just said, I've been already praying. I'm looking past this election. Again, just like you said, I'm not trying to prophesy. I ain't trying to be no prophet. This is more so from a place of a burden. I'm looking beyond the election, and I'm already praying concerning the reaction, because there's going to be a reaction no matter who wins.
Yeah.
That's how volatile we are right now.
Right.
That's how volatile it is. There's going to be reaction no matter who wins. And we're in a day and age now where the president is advocating against teaching our children against racism.
That's right.
And he is opting and preferring to teach our children patriotism and not against racism. Because teaching them against racism is like child abuse that we see.
Mm.
This is the mentality that we're up against. And so I'm praying that once we get on the other side of this election, first of all, I'm praying that whoever God deems fit, that suits the purpose of God, that's who occupies the seat. And then after that, I'm praying for peace. I'm praying for peace. Knowledge is power, but knowledge also should be a burden. And knowledge without a burden, it can only be mishandled.
Mm.
So I'll just leave with that. Great show, guys. I appreciate all of y'all.
All right, good stuff. Thank you for co-hosting with me, Apostle. I appreciate you. And I just appreciate all of you and your participation, your remarks. Everything was just tremendous on tonight. Now, again, I don't take it for granted. You guys joining me in this session. I'm the only woman, yes, of course, but unfortunately, our African-American men are the ones who more often than not are stopped by the police, are harassed, are the ones that fit the description, if you will. So I am going to actually get out of here and encourage all of you that are watching me. I actually have a busy week. I'll be on the air every day this week, except for Friday. So follow me. I have a seminar on tomorrow with Marcus Hill, the Black Wall Street, and I'm a panelist there. So catch me tomorrow evening. Wednesday we'll be back. Mind, Body, and Soul Health and Wellness segment. And then on Thursday, A&B conversation with the Millennial Takeover. So again, I'm thanking my guests, my panelists for joining me on tonight, and for, again, all that we have learned from you. And I believe everyone appreciates what they have heard on tonight. So go to my website, getcaughtinternetradio.com for any updates, and we will see you soon. I'm going to play my end music, and until next time, I want you to cut.
With Annette, it's your intellectual radio show. Here to inspire you and encourage you to be your very best. Get caught in the net with Annette.
All right, guys, you know what I always tell you, be safe.